Hello and welcome to one of my first After Effects tutorials in which we are going to learn how to create this text animation which you can deploy as a lower third as well. So let's get into After Effects and begin. So to start with, I've already imported a video that we are going to need later on in the composition. And to begin, let's create a new composition. I'm going to leave it as 1920 by 1080 with a frame rate of 30 and the length of 12 seconds. And I'll leave the background color as black and click OK. And I'm going to make sure I fit this to so we have a bigger composition. And the first thing I'm going to create is a solid that will serve as sort of a background and give it this color, sort of brown, ash or dark red, and I'm going to call this background. Next thing I'm going to do is pick the type tool and come to the character properties here and choose my font style. I'm choosing Montserrat Bold, and then I begin to type. So I'm going to type the name, I'm going to go into paragraph properties and make sure it's aligned to left. So I have my name. Next thing we are going to do is create a shape layer. So I'm going to right click in here and say new shape layer, and I'll name this. So I'm going to right click and select rename and name it mask underscore 1. Now on that shape layer, I'm going to pick the rectangle tool up here, ensure that my fill has a color. So I'm going to change the color to something a bit different like this, orange. It should have no stroke, and I'm going to draw my rectangle just beneath the text like this. So now for purpose of reference, I'm going to turn on the ruler. That's Control and R. And I'm going to ensure that snap to guides is selected. Show rulers is also select. It's also on Control R. And I'm going to click and drag from the left rule to where the text, just to where the text begins, like this, so that it serves as a reference point of where our text should begin. I'm going to go into the text layer down here, and under the Animate button here, I'll click once and select position. Now with my playhead on the 0 mark, I'm going to click on the stopwatch beside position so that it creates a keyframe. Then I'm going to click on my text and hold down shift whilst I drag it down just beneath the mask. Now just above position we have something called range selector. I'm going to drop that down to and go into offset and then click on the stopwatch beside it to create another keyframe on the 0 mark. I want my animation to last for 2 seconds, so I'm going to drag my playhead to the 2-second mark or the 60 frames mark, and I'm going to increase my offset to 100. Now when I scrub through, you see it has this short animation. Now to make things a bit smoother, I'm going to select both keyframes for the offset and press F9 or right click and select Easy Ease under Keyframe Assistant. Then I'm going to go into Edit Graph tab or the Edit Graph icon showing here. Click on it once and then select the bottom right till I have this handle, and then click on it once and drag it to the left so that it creates this fast to slow animation. Fast to slow animation. It eases in. So I'm going to click on the icon once again, the graph editor, so that it goes away. And then now we go into advanced. There's advanced here, we drop that down as well. And then we look for shape. And shape right now per default is on square. And we select ramp up. Now when I go back to my 0 mark, you see that still we have, because of the ramp up that we selected, the offset is still up. So we're going to offset where we had it as 0 and drag it to our left so that it goes to -100. The next thing we do is to hide everything under the text layer and go into the track matte. So if you don't have the track matte showing here, you can toggle it down here. Probably you have something like this. The toggle switches is just beneath here. You click on it once and the track matte appears. So under track matte we have none. You drop down the arrow and select alpha inverted mask 1. And when we want to make this guide disappear, just hold Control and semicolon and it goes away. So we can preview by clicking on preview here or pressing the space bar what we have just created. So I'm going to create another text layer which will serve as the bottom part of our lower third. So I'm going to pick the text type tool once again. Make sure I'm still on Montserrat, or we can even change it. Let me use Poppins and use semi-bold. Light yellow color will be okay. And the size, I'm going to leave the size at 120. So I'm going to click once on the artboard or the stage and start typing. Let me switch on the caps. executive director. So when I'm satisfied with what I have, I click on my selection tool or move tool once again. Let me resize it a bit further to say 150. I think this is okay, but I'm not so keen on the font style, so I'm going to change the font style to Montserrat, maybe semi-bold. I think this is okay, and I'm going to give it some vertical spacing, say 45. Now I'm going to bring back my guide, control semicolon, and then I'm going to zoom in to say 100. Then I'll bring my hand tool and drag this to this point so that I can see where the text is supposed to touch the guide. Pick my selection tool once again and click on my text layer and drag it just beneath the text above. You can see that this text is not even touching, so we're going to select that one and make it touch the guide, just like this. Now we fit it back to 100% and move our playhead back to 0 and create a new shape layer. Once again, rename this mask 2, mask underscore 2. Once again, we make sure we select our rectangle tool or press Q, and then make sure it has only fill color and no stroke, and then we draw our rectangle just above our text. So we are not going to use it for now, so we're going to deal with the text. Select the text layer, drop down by the side, click on the animate button, and select position. Now under position down here, click on the stopwatch beside it. It creates a keyframe, and then with your move tool, hold down shift whilst you drag your text just as it disappears behind the mask. So we have another drop down just above position called range selector, as we did in the beginning. We click on offset once again, move our playhead to 2 seconds, and then bring our offset to 100. Now we select both offset keyframes and press F9 or right click and go to keyframe assistant and easy ease. Once again, we go into the graph editor, select the handle on the right and drag it to your left so that it has this fast to slow movement. Now under range selector, we have advanced. We drop that down as well, and then we look for shape and select ramp up. Now we move our playhead to the 0 mark, and then we deal with this as we did in the first one. Come back to offset and drag further to your left so that you have negative 100. Let's hide all the properties we just added and play back what we are supposed to get. This looks Yeah, this looks cool. So now we can add our mask. So to do that, we go into the track matte under the text and select alpha inverted mask 2. Now when I hide my guide and press spacebar, this is what we end up with. So I want to add a little finesse to, or a little touch to what we've just done. So I'm going to zoom in to say 50. Make sure it's played out like this, and I'm going to pick my pen tool up here and ensure that the properties has no fill. To do that, I hold down my Alt key and click repeatedly on the fill till it crosses out like this. It means my pen doesn't have a fill, but I'm going to do the same thing for the stroke. Hold down Alt whilst I click on it repeatedly till I have this. So I want my stroke to be white. You can click on it and change the color, but I prefer white for this tutorial. And the size of 3, or let's say 4 will be okay. And then I click somewhere here in between the beginning of the first letters. Hold down Shift once I go to the end like this so that I have a straight line. I'm going to select my move tool and use the arrow button to try and reposition it. So I have a straight line just beneath our text. And then move it down like this. And let me rename this as just line, and drop down and click on the add button here, and we're going to add a trim path to it. So I've selected trim path, drop down trim path, and at the end stopwatch here beside and click on it once as you drag from 100 to 0. I want that also to last for 2 seconds, so I bring my playhead to the 2-second mark. And then I drag my end back to 100. Now I can add some easy ease to it by selecting both and pressing F9, or right clicking and going to easy ease. Go into the graph, select my right handle and drag it to the left. So I should have something like this. Now I want the line to play just a little before the text starts to play, and I want the line to disappear just before the text completes its animation. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go into the start properties here, and somewhere half a second I'm going to click on start once, and just after the 2-second mark I'm going to raise the start to 100. So likewise we did for the and I'm going to easy ease, go into the graph edit tool and edit speed graph. One thing I should have mentioned is when you come into the graph editor, to be able to see these curves, you right click and make sure edit speed graph is selected. If you have edit value graph, you have something like this, which we are not using for now. So make sure edit speed graph is selected so you have something like this. So when we play this back, we have a line running through as the text appears. Now we can group everything together by using pre-compose. So I'm going to select all the layers excluding the background, right click and say pre-compose. Make sure move all attributes is selected. You can rename it to text underscore animation and then click OK. I'm going to resize this to fit, and I'm going to bring in the video that I imported, drag and drop it in between the text animation and the background. Now the video is supposed to be 1920 by 1080 as it shows up here, but when you drag it onto your layers, its sort of resolution has changed. So to fix this, you can press Ctrl Alt and F and then resizes it. Now it's obvious that the lower third is way bigger and in the middle, so we need to resize that. So we pick the composition itself, the composition that we have just created, text animation, and move it down to where it's supposed to be, lower third, somewhere here. And the size, we scale it down to something like this as we reposition it. So something like this is cool. So something like this is cool. Yeah. So when I play this back, this is how it's supposed to be. Now as a lower third, as it appears for a while, it has to go away as well. So let me deal with let's deal with how when it appears for some time, it must go back or must disappear again. So to do that, we're going to select the layer, the animation, the text animation layer, right click and then go to time, and then we're going to select enable time remapping. Now our video is not up to the 12-second mark, so what we are going to do is we're going to reduce the time for our animation like this, and we're going to bring this button here, this keyframe here. We might not need it in the end, and I'm going to disable this background layer because we're not going to need it. And go back to our text animation layer, bring the playhead to somewhere like 7 seconds, and create another keyframe for the time remapping that will serve as a center point of when the animation will start to reverse. And then we are going to pick this first keyframe here and going to edit, copy. Then we're going to go into the last keyframe showing here, go into edit, clear. Now we're going to drag the playhead to the last point of the video here, and going to edit, paste. So realize that at that point our layer doesn't even appear anymore, our animation goes away. So we can play this back. So I think we are done with our animation, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any suggestions or questions, you can leave them in the comment section, and please do well to like, share, and subscribe to this page or channel. So till we meet in the next tutorial, it's bye.